You're listening to Sustainable Photography, episode 149. I'm Ingvild Kolnes, and today I have Kristin Sweeting with me again because she's been here on the podcast before. One of her episodes is even featured as a bonus because she has her own podcast, Dangerous Creatives. I've worked with Kristin for such a long time, and most recently we did a study abroad trip here in Norway together. It was so much fun, and I just knew that I had to have her back on the podcast. If you don't know Kristin, she is a wedding photographer, and she's also a business coach from Nashville. She is all about helping creatives build a sustainable, fulfilling business through intentional photography and smart coaching. You're listening to Sustainable Photography, a podcast all about business tips, inspiration, and confidence building. I'm Ingvild Kolnes, the host of this podcast, and after over a decade as a photographer, I now help talented photographers run sustainable businesses. And for full transparency, you should know that I'm a mentor with paid offers, and I will probably mention some of those in this episode. Hi, Kristin. I'm so excited to have this talk with you.
Hi, I can't wait to. I can't wait because I just enjoy every conversation we have.
Yeah, I feel like we need to just start to kind of recap the study abroad trip to Norway because it was, of course, my first study abroad, even though I was in my own country. And it was just so amazing. And I just thought we should let everyone in on what it's all about.
We had so much fun. I was blown away by Norway, was blown away by the group of people we have. Thank you for being such a gracious host. Study abroad is, do you want to explain study abroad first or you want me to?
Well, I guess when we first started talking about it, I was like, yeah, let's definitely do it. And then I was like, but what is it? Like, is it a workshop? Is it like a trip? Like, what is it? And it's kind of like a mix because you travel and you experience things and you just hang out and talk. But at the same time, I would say it's like you do some really like deep thinking and deep work. It's not superficial like at all.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what makes it so powerful. Like you're connecting with these people who most of them you don't know probably, like for most people, I would assume. And then you just walk away being such good friends and just feeling really connected because you've had these conversations that you probably don't really have with anyone else.
Yeah, I think that even just being outside of your own normal routine and people that are working for themselves are kind of in their own heads a lot or we're at home a lot and being in a space where someone or a couple people are facilitating some deeper conversations while you're like out of your comfort zone, trying new things. We always kind of build in this element of surprise to it as well, or something that's just slightly scary to folks because it's this personal journey we're on too as business owners. We're not just like let's figure out how to make a bunch of money and it doesn't matter anything else. Like most people that we work with or just that I've come across in creative businesses, there's something deeper than just like I'm running a business to make money. Otherwise, we could do a million other things, but we want to be fulfilled. We want to feel whole as creative people. We want to challenge ourselves to grow into this like best, fullest version, expression of ourselves, whatever that might be. And so on these trips, we get to do that in like personal ways, but also in business conversations. And like such a good example was you, Ingvild, doing the this whole time I'd been talking about the train up the mountain to then zip line down the mountain. And the whole time you're just like, I don't know that I'm actually going to do that. Like, yeah, you are.
Because I was the one that said, we have to go to this place. Like we went to my favorite place in Norway and I came up with all the suggestions of like, oh, there's this thing, we can do that. And one of the things was the zip line. And I was like, I just kind of thought that I was coming up with these like random ideas of like, this is something that's possible to do when someone has a day off or something like that. There's no way I thought that we were all going to do it together and it was going to be like part of the itinerary, because then I probably would not have suggested it, because I am so afraid of heights, always have been, like terrified of heights. But then I didn't think that much about it until we were like going in the train up the mountain. And I had imagined a scenario where it was like kind of like really chill, like the zip line kind of like barely going past, and it was like not very high over ground. And then I saw the line from the train and I like instantly started crying. I was like, there is just no way. And from that moment, all I was thinking was just, how can I get back down from this mountain without doing the zip line?
You see the wheels turning. She's like, maybe I could hike down. Maybe I can train down. Maybe I can, how do I sneak away and not do this?
Mm-hmm. I know. And I was like, since I was actually co-hosting it, I was like, I don't really know how I can get away with this. Like, how can I be one of the people that are telling everyone else this is what you should do, and then not do it myself? But then when we were standing like at the top there, I had pretty much decided like, I am not doing this. There is just no way. It's not going to be possible for me to do it. There's just no way. And then it was a mix of what you said and what the guide said, like, because you were like, come on, let's just do it. And you just made it sound like such, I don't know, it was just no big deal. Let's just do it. It's going to be fine. And then that guy that was like hooking us up to the thing, he was just kind of making me laugh, like all the things that I was really afraid of. He was like, yeah, you should be afraid. And I was like, okay. So if he could like make so light of it, then it was just clear that, of course, it wasn't going to be dangerous. It was just my own fear. And then we really took it step by step, like, okay, just put the gear on, put the helmet on, just walk in the line. And then suddenly I was like sitting there and it was like, okay, so we're actually doing it now. And then because suddenly there's just like this jolt and then you get kicked off and you go down the line. I was just like, just going to look at the wire, not looking at anything else. And then kind of like after a few seconds, I was like, but I can actually use this opportunity to like look around me and to just tell myself that it's fine. And that's what I did. And I ended up really enjoying it and I would do it again.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, I mean, and you self-admittedly have had a pretty big fear of heights, right?
Definitely. I don't do anything that's like over, I don't know, 3 feet above ground, like so scared.
And do you feel like your fear of heights is smaller now since doing that?
Yeah, I do.
That's incredible. I mean, I feel like we could make all kinds of business and life comparisons with that story right now. Like, what was one of your biggest takeaways?
From that story, I think it was, well, as you say, there's probably a lot of different ones you can do, but my most powerful one is probably how I would have done it on my own. Like I did it because I was there with someone else cheering me on, telling me it's going to be fine. We're doing this together kind of thing. It wasn't just me doing it alone. And it was, not only was it fine, it was fun and it was worth it and better off now than before I did it. So
yeah. And like you said, you would do it again, or there's other things that might come across your path that you'll be less scared to do next time. I think that is such a powerful thing about groups in general. Is I probably wouldn't have done it if I was there alone either. You know, I would have been like, it's expensive or it's high or it's cold. Like I would have made some excuse to not do it. Yeah, it was cold. It was cold. I was like, I went from being scared of dropping to then being like, oh my gosh, my face is so cold.
That was the same for me.
But I mean, that whole experience, because we did the train up, the zip line down, and then we biked for like 10 miles through like the most beautiful scenery I've ever seen. And if either of us had let our fear stop us from doing that, we would have missed a whole day, a whole day of experiences, sites that we couldn't have anticipated. like seeing experiences we couldn't have anticipated. And yeah, I think our business is like that too, it's so easy to not do things. It's so easy to not put yourself out there or not try that next thing because there's a million reasons to stay comfortable. You know, there's a million reasons to not do it. And we don't even know what we're missing when we're not kind of like leaning into that fuller expression of ourselves and seeing like what am I like without the fear of heights? You know, what else am I capable of?
That's so true. And for me, like I've been in Ireland, like, I don't even know if I'm going to guess at least 10 times. Like I've been there several times a year for the past few years, probably. And I've never even considered doing that. That was not something I would have wanted to do ever. And now it's like, okay, so I went there with someone else and I did it. And now that is something that I want to go back and do again. And I think you're right, because that is probably how we can see our business as well. Like I do this every year. It's fine. It's working fine. And then we don't even know what we're missing out on.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, we don't even know what we're capable of or what we might be missing or what other beautiful things we could be just totally missing out on by not pushing ourselves or not doing the brave thing.
Yeah. Is that what you kind of see? Because you've been a business coach for such a long time and you've been doing these trips for as long as I can remember. So is that something you see most often, both when you do trips and when you do coaching, that people tend to do bigger or scarier things than what they thought was even possible?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, the reason I started doing study abroad to begin with is I had done a study abroad trip while I was in college and went with a group and learned so much by experiencing things, but also like I came back a different person. You know, I came back so confident and so bold, and like I could travel alone. I could do all these other things that I didn't expect. Like I grew as a person so much. And then when I started hosting the trips and doing some of the business coaching, I was like, oh, I really, I think everyone has special gifts in this life, and I think one of mine is I can really see potential in people and I can hold people to a bigger vision than they have for themselves. And so what I think is really cool about the trips is you're with 7 other people who we're learning how to hold that vision for each other. And it's true for me too. Like I can't always see the things myself for my own business, my own life that other people can. But you get in a room or you go through all these experiences and other people are looking at you and saying like, you're really good at this. Or when you did that thing, when you stepped out of your comfort zone and did that thing, like you should have seen your face. And so we're all getting to experience beauty in each other and in each other's growth and being like, well, if that's what they look like when they're stepping out of their comfort zone, that must be happening for me too. Yeah, it's just really cool to experience that kind of thing. And it transcends whatever business you're in right now, because hopefully we all have very long, sustainable photography careers. But if at some point I want to do something different, like I want that freedom to be thinking about my own journey in an even bigger way than just this one thing, this one very narrow avenue. Like creativity, business, growth can all happen in multiple ways, and I hope will through our lives, right? So
yeah. And like that powerful group dynamic, that was really cool to see, because of course I see that in my own group, but it's online. And it was really nice to see it in person as well. How like, I think it was even the first day, one of the girls doubled her rates. And, that's a really big move. And there were just so many different things. I think maybe several people did. Like there was a lot of things that happened, because when you see someone else doing it, you're like, okay, but if she can do it, I can probably do it too. So I think that's the best part of being in a group, is that you kind of grow together and you cheer each other on.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't feel as scary, going back to the zip line thing. It's not as scary when you're doing it together, You're like, actually, the pain of you staying on the cold mountaintop and not coming down with us might actually be worse than the pain of like
Mhm.
getting on the zip line and doing it. And I think it's that way too with groups when you're growing your business. Like you said, like couple days in, girl already doubled her rates and booked her new
Yeah.
rates before we even left Norway. And it's cool to see that as people around her too, to
Mhm.
be like, oh my gosh, like it worked and it works. And what am I scared of?
Yeah, I think it's really cool. And I just think if you haven't ever been part of a group, or if you haven't ever worked with a coach or a mentor or anything like that, it's really hard to understand how big that difference is. And I don't know if you have any way of explaining it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of different things when you're working with a coach and or a group. I'm really passionate about masterminds and group programs because I do think you not only get the support of the coach and the expertise of, someone that's a few steps ahead of you being like, hey, don't do this thing that I did that ended up wasting years of my
Yeah.
time. Or, hey, try this thing. Like I can already see these natural gifts in you. Also, not every coach is the same. And I feel like finding someone that can see me and has that gift, like I have that gift, that is really important to me. Cause I'm like, I want someone who can be like, Kristin, you're good at this thing. Why are you not doing it? Instead of being like, well, you could try it. I'm like, I want to
Mhm.
know. I want you to see me too. So anyway, you have the mentor that like we don't know what problems are ahead of us if we haven't done it already. We don't know what problems and what is possible. So, I give the example of when like years ago, I had my first, I think, $150,000 a year. This was years ago. And in my mind and in my community, I didn't think it was possible to do more than that. Like I was like, I hit the pinnacle of income. That's really what I thought. And I'm a pretty smart person, but I just wasn't surrounded by people who were either honest about what they were making
Mhm.
or that they were making more than that. And so I was like 150. I guess I like peaked. I'm 29 and I've peaked, and so I started like giving away my money because I didn't know what to do with it. And I started hiring people that I didn't really need to hire. And I started doing all these kind of weird things. Also, no one had taught me how to invest or save my money or like what to do, how to make your money work for you. No one had taught me those things. And so I just like kind of start frantically doing things with it because I didn't know. And, now it's a funny story to me because I've made so much more than that. And I've helped other people make so much more than that. And I'm surrounded by people with much bigger visions for their financial life than that. And I just didn't know because I didn't know anyone that had done it.
Mhm.
And so, some of the first coaches I hired it was so inspiring to see how they had grown their business and they could look back and be like, oh, I did this one thing when I was at your place and it like kind of made me stall for 3 years. So don't do that, but do this instead because this is what finally made the difference. I would have had no clue because I had not walked that path before and they
Mhm.
had. So, I mean, I think that that's huge, finding that mentor that can show you like what you don't know. Because it's not that you're not smart, not that I'm not smart. It's like you just haven't done it
Yeah.
yet. And it's not the same strategy as building to 100K. It's just not like you can hustle your way there. You can shoot so many weddings, show so many shoots. Something shifts at a certain point and you need different
Mhm.
strategies. So that's number one. And then with the group, I think like there's just nothing more motivating than being around people that are achieving their dreams or going or like fighting for them, even if you haven't hit it yet. People that are holding you accountable, that are encouraging you, that are sharing their own wins and sharing like how they got there. I just think it is like incredibly motivating. and encouraging. And as you know, you and I as leaders, we can develop an attitude within a group too that's just really supportive of people. And I think that that's really cool too, because it's easy to feel like everyone is not supportive, or the internet wants everyone to fail, or all of this stuff. And you kind of have to like close your circle in a little bit and like really be intentional about whose voice and what kind of messages you're taking in. Because, you know, the mindset piece is such a huge part of our own like experience of our business too.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of things that are coming up for me. One is, how do you find that right coach? Because, you know, as you said, there's so many different ways of doing things. There's so many different kinds of styles and different kinds of personalities. So that's definitely one thing that I want us to talk about. And the other thing that you kind of touched on a tiny bit, where you said like, when you're at a different income level, you'd need different kind of support. Because I keep hearing that, oh, I'm doing well. I don't need any more support. And it's like, how can you ever get to that point where you don't need any support? I don't really understand that, because I feel like the better I do, the more input I want to help me do even better. So can you say anything to that as well?
Yeah, totally. Okay. The first one with how do you find the right person? I mean, I think first of all, listening to their podcast, listen to their content, like make sure you like their voice, you know, you like what they stand for, what they believe, you feel like you have some values alignment is number one. Number two, like as much as you can, try to understand what their life looks like. I hired a coach who was really smart, and I really liked her voice. But as we were working together, I realized that her life doesn't look the way I want my life to look. She works all the time and is always available to people, and like very much that like work kind of mentality. And I work hard, but my family is number one. My health is number two. You know, I want time to spend with my family and my son, and to be with my friends, and I want flexibility. And so, you know, there was a little bit of misalignment there, because to her, if something wasn't working for me, I wasn't working hard enough, or I wasn't putting enough time in. Whereas to me, I'm much more about alignment. And I think like if something is aligned, it will flow much easier. And you can kind of like create the space that you need. You can really design your business how you want to design it. And so anyway, I think like making sure that what they're going to encourage you towards is what you actually want. And you know what? Sometimes we like I have been in business a really long time. When I hired this coach, sometimes that's the lesson we need, is to remember that, you know, that's not what I want. And so I don't ever feel like I make some big mistake. Like I learned a lot from her, and also it reminded me of what is really important to me.
Yeah. That's such a powerful lesson. And I hear that sometimes as well, where it's like, well, I did this huge program and I just got burnt out. And it's like, I think it's because we're not connected enough to our own values, because then you probably wouldn't have signed up to something that had the title of like, make 6 figures in 10 weeks, like, because it screams like, this will take a lot of work and a lot of energy. So yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like, stay connected to your values. Yeah.
Yeah. And it takes time and practice to kind of know what those are, and then to stay committed to them. You know, we talked about this in Norway. For me, like family is one of my top values. And so I'm starting to bring my son to more things, and I want to make sure that I'm attracting clients that are excited about the fact that family is my top value, and not like, oh, look how unprofessional she is that she has her family involved, you know? And so like, I need to be, you know, like there's not one right or wrong way to run a business. You just need to be so clear about it that you then are attracting people with similar values. And I'm really lucky, like the people I do attract are so passionate about their own values and their own family and their own, whether that's like their own children or their friend circle or whatever family looks like for them. So, my clients see things like that as enhancing their experience rather than taking away from it, because I'm also modeling what it can look like to run a business that is really supportive of other parts of your life.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's just part of that clarity thing that you need. And then I think we don't necessarily always realize how important we as business owners are. And that goes for photographers just as much as for coaches, because if you don't show who you are and what your values are, it's going to be really hard for your clients to see you for you and know, like, is this the right photographer for me? Because like the energy and the values, that's such a big part of it. Because especially when it's someone that you're spending a lot of, well, it's not necessarily even a time thing, because if someone doesn't have the energy that you need to be comfortable, you're going to end up with photos that you're not going to like.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think that in whatever industry or whatever position in the market you are, whether you're, a more budget priced person, service or luxury, I still think that personality piece is so important. And times where I've had the most unaligned clients is when I was I was trending too much. Like, I was the popular photographer to be hired. And so I didn't realize that people were hiring me because of this like popularity moment that I was having in time, and not because they're actually aligning with me or my work. And that didn't feel so good either, and some of us will have these moments where we really are trending and we're really popular in that moment. You're the cool girl or guy in that moment, and it doesn't last forever. And I'm kind of glad about that, because if we're just running on popularity, it's not super sustainable. Everybody trends in their own popularity.
Yeah, I think you'll get so much further if you just stick to your values and really start drawing people in based on what you stand for. And I think you're going to have a much better time as well if you're working with people you really like and you have stuff in common with.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the times I've gotten burned out is usually tied back to a really misaligned client, and I've learned how to like let those people go much sooner.
That sounds like a really good idea. Are you ready to scale your business, but you're not really sure how to do it without working nonstop? What if you could charge more, book dream clients, and actually have time for yourself? The Sustainable Photography Program is all about helping photographers like you grow a profitable business without the hustle and the overwhelm. This year, it's completely revamped. We're adding a lot of personalized coaching, so you'll learn to refine your pricing, attract better clients, and how to work smarter instead of harder. Go on over to ingvildkolnes.com/sustainable to learn how you can take your photography business to the next level without sacrificing your sanity. What about mindset? How do you feel like mindset shifts are when you've been working with people? Do you have any stories of how you see people changing?
Yeah. I mean, all the time. And I want to make sure I don't miss your other question too, and I'll throw that in with like, as you grow, needing more support. Yeah, I mean, mindset shifts. I think one thing that can really just create suffering for ourselves as business owners is this like frantic, I have to be working so hard or burning myself out in order to hit my goals.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to let go of that, because what we're living in late stage capitalism a little bit in our world, even if you're not in America, like it's really bad in the US, but other places too, I think it's still there as well. But, this like, I need to be just completely pouring all of my energy into this in order for it to work. And I I don't think that that's true. And I think that when I've noticed people shift into this more kind of open-handed place with their business where they're not holding on so tightly, like this has to be successful, this one way I'm doing it, this one, I mean, we've all done it, I know, is like, you come up with this one way of getting inquiries, whether that's SEO or whether it's your website or whether it's wedding planners or whatever. And you're like, this has to work. And if it doesn't, then there's something wrong with me, or there's something wrong with them, or there's something wrong with the world, and we just get in this really angsty space.
Yep.
Instead of being like, business is kind of a dance, and I might try this one thing and sometimes maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. And I have all these other options of things to try if something's not working. Or if this one person doesn't book, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with me. It means maybe there's someone better coming, And so I think that is one of the biggest shifts I love to see people have.
Like just trusting that it's going to work out.
Yeah, trusting but open. Because I also think that on the other side, you can go too far to this ambivalence where you're then not taking action in your business. You're not putting yourself out there. You're not like trying anything. You're just like, well, if it comes, it comes. And I don't think that that's the answer either. There's very much a sweet spot in the middle or third way, But I do think like when you start feeling where your whole body is tight and tense, I think that that's a little bit of a warning sign. And then if you're too much on the other side where you're like, the universe will send me my work and I don't have to put any effort in, there's both of those are a little bit on the extremes. And then what I like to see is when someone is having a lot of compassion for themselves, is consistently trying new things and putting themselves out there and challenging themselves, is trusting their own creative intuition. So if you're like, I'm excited to try this, I'm feeling really inspired to host a workshop. Like, great. Like, what sounds fun about it? Let's lean into that. Let's, who are we going to invite? What would make it the most fun thing? So I think that like creativity and trusting your own intuitive pings, those little like times where you feel like you just get this idea and you're like, ooh, yeah, that just feels great. That's where I really like to see people be more of the time and living in their zone of genius, where there's a lot of tasks and a lot of things we have to do as business owners. But instead of kind of piling all the things on you that you hate doing, finding the stuff that you're like, I'm really good at this. I enjoy this. I'm going to put more of my time into what I'm good at than focusing on what I'm not good at. I think that that's a really good place for people to be too.
Yeah. And something that you often say is when you start making more money, you realize you have to work less. I think that's really interesting. Can you say something about that as well?
Yeah. Well, growing a business is a practice in letting go. And it's a practice in becoming a little bit less in control of all the things. And so at some point, like in the beginning stages, yes, you're kind of doing everything. You're building all the systems. You're the one that has to be the most excited about your work and be like, look at my work. It's great. Like that's for sure. And then as you grow and you scale, you have to learn how to delegate. You have to learn how to outsource. You have to learn how to not chase shiny objects. That's a big one for me because I want to say yes when my friends want things. I want to help everybody. And the little things are actually holding me back from the bigger tasks that I need to be doing. And so now at this place in my business where I'm leading people, I'm speaking at conferences, I'm, shooting weddings of a really high caliber. I'm like, I have 2 or 3 tasks that I need to be doing. It's working with my clients one-on-one. It's, creating curriculum. It's doing the speeches, doing the photography, and everything else needs to not be me in order for me to do those things at the highest caliber I want to be doing them. Yeah. So for me to be effective at these CEO level tasks And so you have to really be careful about creating the space for you to do those tasks and work in your zone of genius. Otherwise, you're not going to be as effective and yeah, won't be able to grow the same way.
Yeah. And you probably won't even have like time to figure out how to do it if you spend all your time doing all the other things. Because when you're running a business, I don't think there's ever going to be a shortage of things you could possibly do. Like there's always something that you can do. So yeah, just not doing them and having someone else do them it does sound like the better thing to do.
Yeah, but it's scary though. We're used to doing all these things ourselves. And, you asked about needing more support as you grow your business. And part of it is more business support, but part of it is like the emotional piece. It is really hard to let go. It's really hard to learn how to grow as a leader and to train a team to take some of those tasks for you. There's reasons why it's scary, reasons why it's like that zipline moment for you. And you have to be compassionate with yourself too, of like, I've never hired a team member before. I've never been a leader. I've never been a workshop host or whatever the thing is. Like those are new skills for you too. And so just realizing that like as you grow, you're going to be constantly learning new skills and needing training on them and support around them. And
yeah,
every CEO of a large business has a mentor or a team of mentors or a board of directors or whatever. And it becomes more important, not less important.
Yeah. And I also think even when you're not at that level, when you're at the place where it's like, okay, so I'm making okay money and I like my clients, there's always something you can do better. You can streamline your processes and so that you can free up time and spend more time with your family instead. You could probably get better at upselling. Like there's always something you can do to get better. So if you feel like, oh, I'm at the stage where I don't need anything more, then I think you probably need to just reassess. And that's probably when you need a second opinion. Like, is there something I'm missing out on? Because I don't think I've ever seen a business where there wasn't room for improvements.
Totally. I mean, one thing I see with my clients is sometimes people will need more of an integration year. So they might work with a coach for a while and learn all this information. And then they're like, okay, I just need to get my feet under me, integrate it for a minute. And then they come back. And so I've had to do that myself too. But I do think like when you're excited about kind of growing towards that next thing or you're a growth oriented person, there's always something to learn and to grow into and to set a vision for people. Like, every price raise can be a place where you might need support or potentially building different revenue streams, like selling albums or selling prints, or I want to get into stock photography, or I might want to host something myself now. Like all of those things are places where we might need support, and they're kind of these like leaps in our own growth. And I can usually feel them when they're coming, like I know where I want to go, but I'm not totally sure how to get there. And I feel kind of this like tension around it. A lot of times that's where I feel like I'm going through my own leap as a business owner. And I bring a lot of support around me when I do that. I have team members I hire and coaches, and I might find a mastermind. So I'm around other people with a similar vision, because it's so easy to start going towards that goal and then kind of get sucked back down if you're not surrounded by people that are also doing that. Because then I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'm being impractical, or maybe what I want isn't possible, or maybe it's not possible with the amount of work I want to do in my business. And so all of those kind of limiting beliefs start creeping in when we're not constantly seeing examples of people who are making it happen and are figuring out how to get through the challenges. I think that is like super motivating.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's kind of what we started talking about, how powerful it is to be a part of a group of people doing something similar to you, where it's like just seeing what's possible. And I also think that having other people kind of being there for you is so it's having that support as well as being able to see, okay, so they're doing it, then maybe I can do it too.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of us don't have entrepreneur family members or partners, and the conversations are just different. Like I remember being with a partner for a while who like, we want to have someone to process things with, and so I would try to process things with him, and I would be like, "Oh my gosh, I got this inquiry for this event, but it was paying X amount per hour. And I can't do that. That's so little or whatever." And he was like, "That per hour? No one makes that per hour. Who are you to not take that?" And it was a whole thing because it's just different when you're running your own business. Really, you have to think about the opportunity cost. Like if I take that project for that amount per hour, and it keeps me from taking this bigger thing, or I've like now blocked off that weekend and then that big thing comes by and I can't take it. Like you have to be thinking about that stuff too. And whereas he was thinking on a like, well, my 9-to-5 job pays me $50 an hour, $30 an hour, or whatever it was. How could you be like complaining about this hourly rate? And it's just not the same. And so a group of entrepreneur friends or other photographer friends would be like, "You can't take that rate. That's ridiculous." Like, because think about all the hours that go in afterwards or into the opportunity cost or whatever. And so the conversations are just different. And I think that it's like so good to have those people around you too.
Yeah, I see that all the time in my group as well, where it's like if someone gets an inquiry and, they get cheered on to either charge what they really want to charge instead of like doing it for hardly anything or nothing at all. And just seeing those shifts, I think it's so amazing to see.
Yeah, for sure.
So what about like when it comes to sustainability? Because, can't leave that topic out. Is there any like final things you can say about like, this is something you should do to make sure that you have a sustainable, profitable, balanced business?
One of my favorite things to do, and it's on my mind because I just did it, is every 6 months or so do an 80-20 analysis of your business. And, it's called Pareto's principle, but essentially this belief that 80% of the work that you're doing is only yielding 20% of the results. And, 80% of your results are coming from 20% of your effort. And I've just found that to be true so often. And I hate it,
Yeah.
where I'm like, okay, where are those places where I'm putting in so much effort? And then even just like looking at the finances too, of I put in this much into this, either one aspect of my business or one marketing strategy, time, money, effort, energy, emotions. And like, I booked one thing from it, or I didn't book anything from it, or, whatever. And so you kind of look at that and then you can look at the things you have booked and be like, these all came from this one referral source.
Yeah.
Like double down on the thing that's working. And so if you can put more effort, more time into the thing that is working versus like trying all the things and not really evaluating it, it's huge.
I definitely agree. And I like to do that too. And my kind of experience is that a lot of people are kind of scared to look because we're so used to like the habits that we have. For example, Instagram. We're so used to like, you should be on Instagram. And then you end up being there like 3 hours every single day. And it's okay. So it's getting you like 3 weddings. Is it really worth it? So just kind of like taking a look and seeing if there's some kind of shifts that you should do. But I know that it's a little bit scary.
Yeah, we get used to our habits and we're afraid to set a ball down if we're juggling, because like what if they all fall or whatever, And there's usually somewhere in between too, where, like, maybe I can post once a week on Instagram instead of 5 times a day. Or you're like, oh, all my inquiries came from Instagram. I need to show up more on there because I'm getting a lot of work and a lot of people from there. So I should be making an effort to like prioritize that every day.
Yeah. And if you're not for some reason doing that, trying to figure out like what's stopping me, why am I not doing the thing that I know works? That's also kind of important to look at. I've said that probably and mentioned it in several episodes, but I'm in your mastermind, and I'm sure that a lot of people are curious to know more about you and what they can do to work with you. So can you let us in on that?
Yeah, you're so generous. Thank you. Yeah, I have a mastermind, the Dangerous Creatives Mastermind, and it's mostly photographers, but a bunch of different industries as well, and also coach educators and people who are wanting to be more of a leader, thought leader in their industry. So that runs for a whole year, starts in January, and it's just a super awesome group of people from all over. So love that program. And then we also do study abroad. So next year we have one in Paris that's for coaches and educators, and one in Greece that's for advanced wedding photographers. So, you've been in business 10-ish years, you want to work more in luxury market, more be international, or just grow your business in some different ways as a wedding photographer. So those are our 2 trips. And Ingvild's amazing and has been in several of the programs and study abroad. We'd always love to have anyone on a trip or in a program. So, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it. It's really fun working with Kristin, and she's got so many great people in there that you'll get to know. And just, I don't know, there's something about the big shifts that you can make when you're working with someone that I really recommend. So if you've never had a coach or a mentor, I definitely recommend it. I know that I would not be at the place I'm at now if I'd never worked with someone. I just think it's really, really, really hard to see progress if you insist on doing everything alone.
Yeah, for sure. And I continue to invest in my own coaches and education and growth too, and doing scary things myself. I think that's always important, and it's like scary, but it's exhilarating, right? And to see what you're capable of, and there might be something that's really fun for you and really creative that you just didn't even think about, like you're podcasting now and you've created so many cool connections and things and people through this channel, whereas if you hadn't taken that leap, you might not have known that you were good at it and that you enjoyed it. And public speaking's one for me. I was terrified of it for years and years and years, but I found it to be such a fun thing that enhances my photography business too. And so I think that that's one of the cool things about working with someone is like, you don't know what you're even capable of. And there might be something that is really fun and fulfilling for you that's just waiting for you.
Absolutely. It's that thing where you don't know what you don't know. So yeah, just keep your eyes open so that you get to do the things you didn't even know that you wanted to.
Yeah, exactly. Life is meant to be enjoyed. And, I just think about all the beautiful things I want to do and experience in this life. And so many of them I get to do through my business, which is so cool. It's such a privilege. And so, I just think everyone should.
Definitely agree. But I will be sure to link to your Instagram and your website in the show notes. So if you want to check out Kristin, I can definitely recommend that you work with her. If you've been listening to this podcast for some time, I've had several guests on here that have also been working with Kristin, and I'm sure that they feel exactly the same way. So definitely check her out.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, anytime. It's always fun. You just listened to an episode of Sustainable Photography. Please share this episode with a photographer you care about.